Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, tensions between India and Pakistan are rising over the disputed region of Kashmir.
As someone that's covered war, I can tell you it's never pretty. And ultimately, what it will mean for the Kashmiris is a very difficult life.
As accusations and gunfire fly, could the Himalayan region be headed for another escalation of violence? I'm Manuel Rapalo, and this is The Take.
My name is Baig. I'm a correspondent for Al Jazeera English.
Asad, thank you for taking the time to join us today on The Take. Let's start with this attack last Tuesday in Indian-administered Kashmir that killed 26 tourists. This was the catalyst for the rising tensions that we're witnessing now between India and Pakistan. Walk us through what happened.
So last Tuesday, there's a popular resort in Indian-administered Kashmir in the town of Baig. Now, we understand that some gunmen attacked tourists, mainly men, I understand all men, 26 people killed from various parts of India. It's shocked not only India, but people in Pakistan, neighboring Pakistan as well. It's the height of kind of tourist season, it's spring, and it's seen as a deliberate escalation, really, targeting civilians, causes maximum shock and attention. Now, the immediate blame for this from India has been to blame armed groups that are allegedly operating from Pakistan, again, raising the tensions between these two nuclear-armed countries.
Before we talk about who we believe may have been involved in this attack, let's talk about the significance of the attack itself. There's something that you just mentioned, which is that this is happening, or this happened at the height of tourist season. In Indian-administered Kashmir, there's been a lot of change in recent years, not least of which is this the government revoked limited autonomy. There's also been this massive increase in tourism. What do we need to understand about the new Kashmir?
Well, what we need to understand is that the conflict isn't new. There's been tensions ever since, the British divided India and Pakistan. Both countries claimed Kashmir. Now, through the 90s, there was armed struggle. But really what's been significant under this new government, under Narendra Modi, is revoking this Article 370, which removed this semi-autonomous nature of Kashmir. And that's upset a lot of people. There were protests, there were crackdowns. And these, again, aren't anything new. But again, it's increased frustrations and tensions for many Kashmiris. And we have to go back to what's been going on in Kashmir over the years. There's been allegations of human rights abuses that the Indian military carry out there. There's almost 500,000 troops there, making it one of the most militarized zones in the world. You have the line of control, which is between India and Pakistan, which acts as a de facto border. Sometimes there's firing going back and forth. There's armed groups that have operated there. Some want Kashmir to be independent or just free from Indian rule. Others want it to be a part of Pakistan. And what's also important is that both countries have fought wars over Kashmir. But ultimately, a UN resolution, I think UN Resolution 47 was passed, asking for a plebiscite, a right for the Kashmiri people to decide their future. Now, that has never happened. And so far, it doesn't look like it's going to happen because neither side are willing to really make compromises.
I guess the question regarding the attack is why tourists? You mentioned that this happened at the height of tourist season. 26 tourists were killed. Why attack tourists? What message would a militant group be trying to send by killing tourists?
Well, when you have tourists in an area or visiting a part of the country that there's a conflict going on or people are unhappy, what does it show? It shows that there's normalcy. It shows that there's economic stability. It says, hey, everything's fine here. Life is going on as normal. Now, when you target tourists, it kind of shatters that myth. It shows that it's trying to destabilize the area, it's trying to scare away civilians, but also it kind of undermines that narrative that India's control of Indian-administered Kashmir, that everything is fine, that it's been kind of whitewashed by not only Bollywood, but also the Indian government trying to shy away from some of those issues that have been going on. The fact that many Kashmiri leaders have been under house arrest, haven't been able to go to Friday prayers for so long. people ignore that. So when you target that, it's supposed to show insecurity, but also provoke strong emotional and political reactions. And any group that carries out attacks on civilians, it's about what political capital are they going to gain from it? What is it to actually gain from killing civilians? It's not really a military objective. It's a political message saying to the world, look at Kashmir, and also saying to the government in India and New Delhi is that, wait, you don't control this. There's still instability here, and there's still people that want to be heard.
The militants should also be treated in the same manner as they treated my brother. They shot 3 bullets at him. What will we do now? Where will I find my brother now? He loved me so much.
This was Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday.
Say to the whole world, India will identify, track, and punish every terrorist and their backers. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth.
The Indian government has already introduced some retaliatory measures against Pakistan, but Pakistan has denied any involvement. In fact, they've called for a, quote, neutral investigation here. What do we know about those responsible for the attack?
Well, what we know is that the group is called the Resistance Front.
What do you make of this news that we're hearing now that the Resistance Front was hacked, that they actually did not claim responsibility for the attack? Is that something that you can comment on?
It's a difficult one because, look, there's many groups that have operated in Kashmir. Now, India has said that this resistance front is linked to Lashkar-e-Taiba. Lashkar-e-Taiba essentially wants Kashmir to be a part of Pakistan. They also carried out the attack on Indian Parliament in 2001 and 2008 on the Mumbai attacks. Now, has Pakistan in the past supported groups in Kashmir? I went there before 9/11, Pakistani-administered Kashmir, and you could see the murals on the walls on the different groups. There were so many groups. The camps were spread out, obviously kind of like secret locations, but everyone knew where they were. Is this specific attack backed by the Pakistanis? Well, until there's evidence, we can't say that it is. But what we do know is that after 9/11, President Musharraf, then the head of the military who became president after this military coup, he closed down lots of these groups. A lot of them were forced to go underground, and the camps disappeared, the offices disappeared across the country. And basically, because Pakistan took part in the war on terror, there was this internal struggle between these groups. Now, if someone doesn't claim responsibility, it's difficult to say why they did it. Because the whole point is, if someone claiming responsibility for an attack is, well, we did this attack and this is why we did it. These are our reasons for doing it. The whole point of an attack is to send a political message, right? Is to say, okay, this is our struggle and this is why we do this. When someone doesn't, then it kind of leaves everyone guessing as to why this happened and who is actually behind it. There's already conspiracy theories on the Pakistani side where politicians and ministers have openly said that this is some sort of red flag internal Indian operation to kind of raise tensions and whatnot. But until India presents evidence, we just don't know.
Speaking of this horrific attack, as you mentioned, one of the worst, if not the worst attack in this region in the last 25 years. After the attack, India moved pretty quickly to cancel visas. They cut some of their embassy staff, even threatening the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty, which Pakistan has warned making any sort of cut to this treaty would be equivalent of declaring war. Talk to us about that. Why is this treaty so important, and how serious is it for India to be pulling back from it?
Well, it's serious because it was put together in 1960 by the World Bank. It survived wars. And for many years, for decades, in fact, it was an example of how two countries could still cooperate on water despite being enemies and going to war. Now, the treaty basically is giving 3 rivers. Now, as you said, Pakistan has said that any attempt to divert or stop these rivers, they will consider it an act of war. Now, the issue is that much of Pakistan's population rely on this for agriculture and livelihood. It's a lifeline for hundreds of millions of people.
It would be absolutely devastating for Pakistan, in other words.
It would be. But the question is India able to do anything about the flow of the rivers? Right now, when they're in full flow, they can't. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the storage, they don't have the capacity. But just threatening this could be an issue. But what experts think is that it's more significant when dry season hits. That's when many in Pakistan really rely on it, and India could have an impact. But also, it kind of weaponizes water.
More with Asad after the break. Hi, Manuel Rapalo here. Before we continue today's show, I wanted to talk to you about Hindsight, a dramatized history show from Al Jazeera Podcasts. We have a season 7 beginning on Wednesday, May 7th. But in the meantime, you can catch up with season 6 right here on Al Jazeera's YouTube podcast tab and listen to all other seasons wherever you get your podcasts. Here's a preview of season 7.
I want to sing, Hassan. That's all I want.
Hindsight, a dramatized history podcast from Al Jazeera.
Have you seen what the British have done? They have stabbed us in the back.
I'm your narrator, Charles Dance. In season 7, we meet people from the Arab world, including dynastic leaders.
I was in my early 20s and running Egypt.
Under my rule, Muslims will retake our lands from foreign invaders.
And artists, like the famed French-Algerian writer Albert Camus.
There is something deeply absurd about the search for meaning.
At that moment, I was no longer Amal al-Atrash. I became Asmahan.
Egypt's sisters in crime.
We were mere spectators who provided food and drinks.
We're not killers.
You've heard of them.
My name is pronounced Salah ad-Din.
I am Shagarat ad-Dur, Sultana of Egypt.
Now it's time to hear from them.
You may call me Faisal.
My name is Raya Ali Hammam.
I am Skin Ali Hammam.
Hindsight, a dramatized history podcast from Al Jazeera. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's talk about how this is playing out on the ground on either side of this disputed border. We heard from Al Jazeera's Kamal Haider, who is in Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
We drove from Islamabad to the Pakistani-administered Kashmir. This is about 3.5 to 4 hours drive from the Pakistani capital. Along the way, we saw people going about their daily chores. The markets are open. Tourists, of course, are leaving the area because they are now apprehensive that if there is a conflict between India and Pakistan, it will be devastating because many Kashmiris living on this side of the border have relatives living on the other side and vice versa. This issue is as old as the independence of India and Pakistan in 1947. This geographic issue has not been resolved amicably. Although the countries have fought several wars, there have been peace talks, treaties amongst them, but all that seems to be going up in smoke.
So, Asad, how is this playing out in Indian-administered Kashmir?
Well, to many people, tourism is a lifeline. In Indian-administered Kashmir, they rely on tourists. It helps the economy, helps their businesses, it helps their livelihoods. Yes, there are issues around freedom. There are issues about the fact that people have not been able to decide their future. But so it did come as a shock. And also what some people or many people have missed is that when this attack actually took place, it was locals that came to the aid of the tourists to protect them and try to help them. As many Kashmiris will say that both India and Pakistan will fight and there will be wars or there will be a conflict, and it's the Kashmiris that always lose out. And again, Kashmir is a disputed region. Some people have called it occupied Kashmir, occupied by Pakistan and India. Others, we say that is administered, but also there's a part of Kashmir that is with China. So again, ultimately, we have two states, Pakistan and India, that want Kashmir, but ultimately it's the Kashmiris that are losing out. No one tends to hear their voices.
I want to talk about something Pakistan's former ambassador to the UN, Maliha Lodi, said on Al Jazeera over the weekend.
Let's not forget, this is the fifth crisis between the two countries in the last 20, 25 years. And each time, the crisis becomes more complex, and it's not very clear where this particular crisis will end.
Both countries that we're talking about here, India, Pakistan, are nuclear nations. Having the threat of nuclear war obviously adds a sobering layer to this question. What is it going to take a step back to prevent this crisis from escalating into something far worse?
It's going to take cool heads and diplomacy. Both countries have nuclear weapons. It's not in anyone's interest to have a conflict. Neither country can afford it. It's not good for the people. And for Pakistan, Kashmir is a really difficult issue. They've always said that Kashmir belongs to Pakistan. But if I take you back to just how destabilizing this can be, in 1999, there was a conflict in Kargil, which is part that the Pakistani army had taken over some glaciers. There was a conflict. And the political ramifications of that conflict were, in 1999, after that, Pakistan, basically the military had lost faith. There was a dispute between the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and General Pervez Musharraf, the head of the military. Following that Kargil conflict, or that crisis, there was a military coup in Pakistan. So anything that happens in Kashmir, it has ripple effects across Pakistan. And it's a politically difficult topic. Pakistan saying it's an act of war, again, raising the stakes and the rhetoric. And ultimately, all it takes is one mistake. Or one stepping over or miscalculation, and this could blow out into not just a small conflict, but a all-out war, and that's in no one's interests.
Asad, in the past, crises like these have often involved sort of back-channel diplomacy. What role do you anticipate international actors like the United Nations, like the United States, China, or even Russia might play in this current crisis?
So I think somewhere along the line, the United Nations may want to step in or say something or play a role of mediator. The United States will often play a quiet mediator role, although under the current administration, I'm not sure what role that will be. But in the past, it has been one to de-escalate the tensions, and pressure from Washington can be decisive. China is a close ally of Pakistan, but with growing economic ties with India. And again, it will urge restraint to avoid regional destabilization. China has invested heavily in Pakistan, especially in the Gwadar port in Balochistan. So they wouldn't want anything to jeopardize that. And there will be back-channel diplomacy, and it may be already happening, especially through the intelligence and diplomatic intermediaries, to try to kind of de-escalate this, whilst at the same time where both sides can save face. But what's important to say is that so far, India hasn't really publicly presented any evidence that this group is backed by Pakistan. And as long as that doesn't happen, Pakistan can always step back and say, well, they've got nothing to do with us.
We've mentioned several things that are up in the air. The Indus Waters Treaty. There's been reports of live fire being exchanged across the disputed border. What will you be paying close attention to in the coming days when it comes to whether or not this escalates or de-escalates?
Well, there's a few things that I'll be keeping an eye on. One is the kind of military movements along the line of control or cross-border artillery fire or firing. It does happen from time to time, but kind of the intensity of that in Kashmir and along the line of control. Whether India presents any evidence publicly linking Pakistan to the attack. Changes in water policy rhetoric, whether they, because there's lots of information sharing that happens as a part of that agreement. Some of it's already been reduced even before this, but any actual steps towards suspending that treaty would signal a major escalation. Like, for example, India saying, okay, we're going to start this project or this dam project or this, to store water. Any diplomatic moves, special envoys, emergency UN Security Council meetings, or statements from Washington or Beijing, and any domestic political reactions inside India and Pakistan. That's something to look out for, whether leaders use this to rally nationalist support or show restraint or try to de-escalate. Those are the few things that I would and lots of people will be looking at to see where this goes next.
Asad, the reactions that people are having on social media, and it's a mix of everything. Like I've been seeing people who are making light of this, and there's others, of course, who are calling for and advocating for war, right? But I've also seen reports of people who are afraid, folks who live in the Kashmir region, who have bunkers and are anticipating escalation. Can you tell us how this is impacting ordinary people on the ground?
I think, you have to step away from the social media rhetoric sometimes, because people talk about war without knowing what war really is and what it means. And as someone that's covered war, I can tell you it's never pretty. It's not like a movie. And ultimately what it will mean for the Kashmiris is a very difficult life already, because it's a very poor area anyway. Both sides of Kashmir. It's not a particularly affluent area, but these are people's homes we're talking about. These are people's livelihoods. These are people's agricultural lands. These are people's history in that region. And these are two states that are heavily equipped. It's one of the most militarized zones in the world. They have air forces, they have artillery, they have advanced weapons, they have nuclear weapons. And the prospect of that is very, very frightening. I spoke to people in Kashmir just yesterday, and they were saying, we feel like any day now that this could explode, that this could escalate. And we just don't know what we're going to do or where we're going to go. And if you're poor, the rich people tend always to be able to get out. They can travel somewhere else. They can take their belongings and go, as bad as that may be. But poor people sometimes have nowhere else to go. And already sometimes we have Kashmiris spread out across Pakistan, but also the world. I also saw protests taking place between Indians and Pakistanis in London. That gives you an idea inside the UK, how this conflict is showing itself between the two different communities who have essentially lived side by side in the UK, but things like this make it flare up there too.
You've covered conflict all over the world, and I know that you can share that perspective. You talk about how different war is on the ground than how people perceive it watching it comfortably from their homes. I'm wondering if you can talk about this from a more personal side, given the fact that you are Kashmiri. How does this affect you personally?
Well, it affects us because we still have relatives in Kashmir. And growing up, our parents always spoke about the wars. My mum told me that when she was a little girl, she remembers having to turn the lights off because there are aircraft flying overhead and you had to turn the lights off so you don't get bombed. And she was just a girl. I think she's just a child. I think she may be 6 years old at the time. And I think, and also from the UK where I live is one of the largest Kashmiri diasporas in the world. So we have many Kashmiris living in the UK. So it's something that's the prospect of war, because people do go and visit family and friends and have homes there. The idea of covering war in a different country, but then going back to your homeland to cover it is, I think, when you sit down to think about it, it makes it all that very more kind of scary and personal. In the sense that you're not just reporting on someone else's war, you're reporting on a war that affects people that you actually know and have a link to.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Asad, Baig, it's been really great catching up with you, man. Thank you for joining us today on The Take.
Thank you.
And that's The Take. We really want to hear your thoughts on today's episode. What did you think of the discussion? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading through. And if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to catch new episodes when they come out. See you tomorrow.